Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. This is the Midtown Madness Podcast, where we don't know ball. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's season 4. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men and a Garden and their many salsa and pickle products. Pete, I talk about it all the time. I'm tired of people trying to, on podcasts and YouTube videos, talking about subscription services, this stuff they're selling to you that it's saving you money and you're going to eat better. That's just not true. That's why we talk about Two Men in the Garden. It's local. It's just really, really quality salsa and pickles and so many other products. They taste amazing. And they've got all the flavors that suit your individual salsa preferences. If you're out at the grocery stores, you can pick up their many products at, Schnucks, Deerberg's, doesn't really matter. You can get their salsa there. Or if you really are particular about your salsa preferences, you can hit them up on twomeninthegarden.com and buy your salsa directly from the source. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, we just can't get away from the weird slew tangentially related stories. I mean, this is going to be a tough one to kind of like eat around the shit, if you will.
So yeah, try as we might, sometimes slew cannot stay out of the headlines. And this is one that actually, got picked up by some national media sources as well.
It's weird because it didn't really get picked up by, I didn't see it on Fox 2 Now, which is the local TV news I checked. And then STL Today didn't have it.
Yeah, I thought I remembered seeing something in STL Today about it, but I definitely found a few other, I don't remember which local news broadcast it was. I found it on one of their websites. I looked at Riverfront Times. I looked at a few other local places when I was reading about it, but
the Riverfront Times, solid news source.
Hey, I wanted to get as many perspectives as I could, and
I say that just because it's really just a fun magazine.
It's the local alt weekly, and yeah, I mean, like any other media news source, they've struggled, right? I mean,
yes.
Anyway, this is the story here is about reparations, Zach. Last week we talked about the World War II pre-World War II Chancellor of Austria. This week we're getting into reparations because
we're moving closer to present day in our in our St. Louis history journey through time.
So descendants of the people enslaved by St. Louis University announced this past week that they calculated how much labor and wealth was stolen from their ancestors and came up with a range of $361 million to over $70 billion. And I think that very wide range with a very large figure on the high end of it is why this got a lot of headline attention, right? Yeah. I mean, when there's a group of people on campus with saying they've descended from the people who built campus and were not paid for it, that's a big range. That's a huge top dollar figure, and that's exactly the kind of thing that's going to get a lot of attention, and that's what has happened to SLU in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, it's really wild, and I think when you see that $70 billion range, I think there can be a lot of people who are like, well, there's a couple reactions. It's like, okay, that's meant to grab headlines and get attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the reaction of, wait a minute, is it possible that we might need to pay $70 billion? We still need a lot of money for that buyout. How are we going to pay the $70 billion?
Can't do both. Got to pick
one.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So to kind of give a little more background here. So this group is called Descendants of St. Louis University Enslaved, or DSLU with an E at the end for short. And while they acknowledge that SLU has, quote, taken steps to recognize and memorialize its history through the Slavery, History, Memory, and Reconciliation Project, which is the SHMRP for short, there is still more to be done, specifically working with university leadership to come up with a plan to compensate the descendants for what they are rightfully owed. So, in terms of numbers here, Zach, researchers have identified 70 people as being enslaved by SLU. It might be more, but there are the 70 that they have definitely identified through paperwork at the time. Now, the Jesuits, the order of the Jesuits, have relied on had past tense
Men and
relied
women
on
for
slave
others.
labor. Yeah. So they had done it around the world from the time that they were founded back in 1540, including in the U.S. until 1865, obviously when slavery was abolished. So slaves were used to support Jesuit churches and schools in Missouri, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Louisiana, Alabama, Illinois, and Kansas. A
You're
couple non-slave states in there even.
you're not getting off the hook, Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. But SLU, Georgetown, and Spring Hill College specifically all relied on directly on slave labor, building buildings, performing other services on campus. So, we know SLU was founded in 1818, which precedes the state of Missouri by 3 years, let alone the abolition of slavery, which was another 47 years. So it is hard to, without even if you knew no specifics whatsoever, it's hard to imagine that there was not in a state where slavery was legal, that there was not slave labor involved, given almost 5 decades of existence before it was abolished. So SLU spokesperson Clayton Berry said the school couldn't provide a detailed response yet, but he acknowledged that the university's participation in slavery was a grave sin and said their efforts to reconcile with this shameful history have been slow, and we regret the hurt and frustration that this has caused, and promised to continue the reconciliation work and reestablish connections with descendant families.
This
So,
is
Zach,
this is an interesting statement, and I I can't it's you and I have I'm very much and I'm not belittling any sort of politics, but you and I have very different levels of what hits our radar is things that are majorly okay, this is a wild story. To me, it's a wild story. To you, you're like, yeah, okay, we got to talk about this. But this, it's so crazy. For the way he talks about it is almost like it happened 20 years ago. It's just kind of funny just the way he talked about. I thought the statement was kind of I'm looking at this as oh, this is not good, but also just a wild story with insane quotes across the board, no matter where it's coming from.
sure. Well, I think he's taking an approach of I want to be as sensitive as possible.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It's like,
100%. I'm just saying
yes,
it's just so
right.
so very make sure you hit everything so that
Yeah,
nobody to not anger
acknowledge
anybody. Yes.
you acknowledge the reality of it, be as sensitive as possible, but not really commit to anything at the same time.
Yes.
So I sort of understand where they're coming from there, but in the meantime, I looked into what other schools in similar situations have done. Georgetown, we've already mentioned. Georgetown created a $400,000 a year reparations fund. So the Georgetown and the Jesuits combined vowed a total of $27 million, split 10 million from Georgetown and 17 million from the Jesuits overall to help fund that. And I'll circle back to that later. Harvard is at the high end of this. They set up a $100 million endowment fund for slavery reparations. I'm not sure what the current funding status is, but for reference, their overall endowment is estimated to be close to $50 billion. So that's like a drop in the bucket compared to their overall endowment. And I don't think they can just peel that out of this, but they could probably raise 100 million pretty fast given that they're Harvard.
I also just realized, I just learned how endowment funds work. I didn't realize that they take all these donations and then they put it's like a hedge fund.
It's pretty interesting, and then it's come up a lot recently because a lot of people have asked, or some people have asked, why can't we just pay Ford's buyout or the next coach or whatever
Because
athletic
it's
project
tied
we
up
want
in investments,
from the
ladies and
endowment?
gentlemen.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons you can't just say, hey, we need to pull this amount of money out of the endowment so we can get rid of a coach we don't want anymore. It's not that simple,
An
but
endowment is not exactly a liquid asset.
yes, nor is it a slush fund for athletic projects. But we'll get into
Although it
that
should
another
be.
time.
It should be.
It'd be more fun that way. We'd be
Yes.
better at sports. Uh,
Absolutely.
the Commonwealth of Virginia passed a law requiring 5 public universities, including VCU, to, quote, make reparations through scholarships or community-based economic development and memorial programs. And then the UVA, the University of Virginia, set up Universities Studying Slavery, the USS, a consortium of over 100 colleges, including some in Canada and Europe, sharing best practices as they work through dealing with slavery in their histories. And SLU is one of those schools participating in that. So I guess I want to just at a high level here, Zach, like just go over some of like what this actually means. This is a national movement, right? I mean, it's been around, it's been happening for a while. Brown University back in 2006 started a fund because of some of their history, and that's up in Providence, Rhode Island. Um,
You mean
what's
mafia connections? That was there. That was what it was for.
Buddy Cianci was
Yeah.
involved. No,
Yes.
yeah, so I mean those schools are so old, you know, like Brown and Harvard. It's even the history there goes even farther back. But the point there is like this is not a new thing. It's just happening to hit SLU now. It's the dollar figure that you're seeing in the headline that's grabbing the attention and that's made it a bigger story. I really have not seen examples of school actually being legally required to make payments. It seems like everything that they're doing so far have been discretionary, and they're usually done in tandem with groups like DSLU, these groups that have kind of raised the issue or come at the universities with demands or you know or whatever you want to call it. So I haven't seen anything like this like become a big legal case that's gone up the chain.
Oh,
Um,
I just caught this line in the note. Holy smoke. That is an insane line, and I can't wait to get to it.
Okay.
You
So what generally whatever they come up with, the schools and the groups that they're working with are much smaller in terms of dollars, and they're going to include things like education, memorialization, and in addition to some financial commitment terms, right? So the Jesuits announced a few years ago in 2021 an initial pledge of 100 million toward an overall goal to raise $1 billion for the Descendants of Truth and Reconciliation Foundation. So the pledge to Georgetown, as we said already, was 17 million of that amount. And Zach, I think there's a line now that really grabbed your eye.
Yeah, in 1838, the Jesuits sold 272 enslaved people from plantations in Maryland to pay off Georgetown's debts.
Yep.
Did
Yeah.
they have to buy out a basketball coach?
I don't think that would have happened
Okay,
at the time.
no, okay, just checking.
But that kind of gives you okay. So there's been a $27 million commitment there, and part of it is a $400,000 a year reparations fund, but the number is much bigger than SLU, right? It's 272, but at the same time, they're not talking about the ongoing labor necessarily, which is what DSLU is talking about when they're talking about their ancestors that were at SLU's campus. This is like the one-off sale of enslaved people. It's crazy to think about all of this, right? It's crazy to try and come up with numbers today.
Like
it boggles the mind.
I'm trying to envision like they had them like in some sort of housing, obvious. Like it is a crazy, like there has to be infrastructure
Right.
for that. It's just mind boggling.
It is. It's it really is. And it's also wild to me that here we are, 2 centuries later after SLU's founding, um, not really have addressed it, properly, right? Like you wish like you could go back to 1865. It's not just like it's over now, and now we're on a level playing field, right? Like obviously there's a long and
Save
tortured
yourself
history
and some money.
after that, and when we don't have the, obviously the time or the expertise or anything to get into it, but it's like there's a lot of things that you would go back and change, right, to where this would not even be a conversation today. And that's the shame of it, is how long we have to how long the tail on this is,
Yeah.
we're just now coming up with ways to deal with it. I mean, it's all like it's all terrible, but I think at the end of the day, this is not going to, it's 70 billion is not a figure that is realistic. And I think everybody involved knows that that would be the end of SLU,
Yes.
period, as we know it. If you liquidated all of their assets, including the endowment, you would just make a dent in that figure, right? Like it wouldn't even come close to covering that amount. So I think everybody realizes that. And when you look at what other schools, whether you want to look at it in terms of their overall endowment, whether you want to look at it in terms of just the hard dollars, it seems like it's not anywhere near that is what they're coming up with at the end. And this is an ongoing, evolving thing, and we'll see where it goes. But for anybody who's worried about this, I guess I would just say like, just don't overreact to it, right? Like
Yeah.
SLU's gonna do the right thing. They're gonna work with the group. They're gonna do the right thing, and SLU's gonna be fine. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, they'll be fine.
I
And
I think I think a lot of people have the see like so I think people were kind of frustrated that you let a non SLU group, a group not a non-student group, so to speak, on campus to hold a press conference. And I think I look at this one a little bit differently. Like I don't love that people that are asking for $70 billion are allowed to do that on campus. Like that's kind of tough to swallow. I mean, of course, I'm looking at this from a different position than those who are holding it, because I'm sure a lot has been tough to swallow for them throughout the years, right? But I think with this, it's a little bit, because I think people are looking at it with the history of the Occupy SLU and then the Clock Tower Accords, and I think that was a protest, where you're like, that's just whoever wants to come on campus to protest can come on campus, and I think that's where I think people were right to be like, wait a minute, let's not allow just anybody to set up shop on the campus steps, which is understandable. But I think with this one, it's a press conference. It's not they're not setting up encampment, demanding that they be paid before they leave. So it's not like that. I think it's a right move. It's a good, it's good to work with them instead of firing back at them.
yeah, I don't, yeah, and some people were saying like, yeah, why are they being allowed on campus? And like Biondi never would have done that, and
They probably wouldn't have.
that's very well might be true, but I mean, like, you already have a headline that your university
Mm-hmm.
relied on slave labor for the first 4.5 decades of its
Sure.
existence. You want to add to that, and now you won't let their descendants come on campus,
Yeah.
or you had DPS chase them off campus. Well, like you think the photos from that are going to be great? You think the headlines are going to be flattering? And you've now given them all the more ammo
Mm-hmm.
that you're the bad guys. Like, stop being the bad guys. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the way they've handled it is absolutely the right thing to do. They're minimizing their potential financial downside risk here, and at the same time acknowledging the wrongs of what they did 200 less than 200 years ago. And I think in the end, it's not going to be billions of dollars. It will be some financial commitment. There will be more memorial and education and community outreach and all of the, it's going to be a multi-layered approach, and they're going to do the right thing. And I hope that the group in the end is satisfied with what SLU and it comes up with which I'm sure will be done in cooperation with them. So I think anybody who's kind of worried about this or just reacting to the headline or whatever, just kind of take a deep breath and know that SLU's not going away, and it'll be fine.
Unfortunately, we do have basketball to talk about.
We do, we do.
So another embarrassment to the university, slightly less important, but an
Yes,
embarrassment nonetheless.
it certainly puts basketball in perspective.
It does. An embarrassing defensive performance on Friday the 16th. 95 points scored by VCU. The Billikens looked fine on offense. They put up 85 points, but in the end, a 10-point loss at home against a conference rival. You have to hold serve. It was the Billiken blizzard inside. It was more of a blizzard outside than really inside, Pete, because not many people showed up for this one.
No, and in the end, it seemed like the roads maybe weren't as bad as people had feared. Reading the forecast that day, it seemed like they were going to get 1 to 3 inches of snow, and that roads could get a little slick. But it seemed like the roads, which is the same thing that happened here in Cincinnati a few hours later, by the way, we got like 2 inches, but the roads were totally clear, so like
No,
it wasn't a problem. I guess it was warm enough in the week leading up to it.
it was interesting because I went to the gym at lunch and I had gotten there before, like as it was starting to snow. And when I looked outside when I left, as I'm leaving, there was snow on the ground. It was a pain in the ass to get home. But like later in the day, it was fairly okay. I have not taken 170 one time this season. I took 170, and of course, the on ramp, there's an accident blocking the entire on ramp
Of
at
course.
Page and 170.
Yeah.
So I sat there for like 15 minutes and had to like inch along through like this narrow corridor. But yeah, it wasn't bad. It was cold. Walking through snow is not fun, obviously, but yeah, I thought people could have probably gotten out and braved the snow, but I mean, this Billiken basketball season is not one for which people are really going to take risks like that.
Yeah, I think had the roles been reversed here, and I think VCU had come into this game winning what 8 of 9 or 9 of 10 or something like that, and getting back in the mix for a top couple spot in the conference. And I think if you switched our seasons, and if we were
Yeah.
that team, I think people would be showing up to watch what we're going to do next and see if we have a chance for a postseason. But as it stands, it's like unless conditions are all ideal and you have nothing going on, you're just not going to see this team play, no matter what the weather's like. Um,
I think I'm there. I think at this point, like I don't really feel like driving down to Chaffetz anymore. I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
I'll go to Dayton. I'll go to the Dayton game because Arch Baron Cup. But
mhm,
I mean, what am I going to spend 20 minutes driving there, 2 hours watching the game, 25 minutes getting out? It's
right,
dealing with I mean, it's a shit show at Compton and 40 there.
right.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah,
But
I certainly don't begrudge anyone who cannot get motivated for these games anymore.
no, I mean, clearly, the Billiken defense or the coach's defensive plan, there's no motivation to come up with anything. I
No,
don't know I truly don't. We're gonna get into the quotes after the game because they were a little like they were staggering, honestly. Um, but it was just the defense is just awful. They can't guard
yeah,
one on one. They can't guard as a team. Nobody can focus long enough to through a shot clock. We did a 24-second shot clock because that's
yeah.
about as long as we can keep our attention.
Yeah, and I think that's being generous. I mean, SLU's scoring has been fine. We scored 50 in the second half, gave up 53. The game was actually tied at 61 with a little over 12 minutes to play. And SLU had it within one possession several times after that, but the defense just couldn't string stops together. I mean, it's kind of the same old story, and we've diagnosed what's wrong with the defense, I feel like every week lately. So I don't know if we need to get into every reason, but it's just like you said, not there. It's not there on an individual or team level. It's terrible. And every team and every player seems to have record nights against us. VCU had not scored more than 87 all season. they come to SLU and they beat that by 8. They scored 95. Joe Bamasil, 27 points. He scored 29 the last time we played. So certified Billiken killer.
Yeah.
Max Shulga quietly ended up with 26 because, he was having an average game before that and then hit 2 back-breaking three-pointers late. The first one felt like a dagger, but the second one was really the one that put us out of our of any hope of winning this one. So it's the same old story, Zach, on defense. It's hard to watch teams just get whatever they want against SLU. It time and time again.
And it's hard to sit here and get excited about the next line, which is Sincere Parker scores 30 points for the third game in a row. I mean, in any other year, that is like we're sitting here gushing over Sincere Parker, but you know, he's the first to do it since Larry Hughes. That's so many. That's
25 years, 26 years.
25. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are having he is having an historically good stretch on offense, and this team is historically bad on
Yeah.
in every other way possible, except for maybe 3-point shooting.
Yeah. 97 points in 3 games. He was 10 of 16 from the field in this one, 4 of 6 from 3, keep shooting, and 6 of 9 from the free throw line,
He
which is actually down
bombs
from
them.
where it's been. He really does. And you can tell when he's feeling it too, right? I mean,
Yes.
he's just had that swagger the past 3 games where he just feels so confident every time the ball leaves his hands. And he's had a few heat check shots, a few that have been like when he's missed like by a lot on some of his misses. But man, oh man, every other shot you just feel so good about the second it leaves his fingertips. And it's just a shame that is getting wasted in these abysmal defensive efforts.
Not only is he great from the outside, he is he has supreme body control in the air. Supreme body. Like he is, if this guy could defend at an average rate, he'd be a lottery pick.
He's slippery. He's like, this is when I watched him in JUCO, right? Like I watched some of his games when he was in JUCO. I watched a lot of any highlights of his I could find, and this was kind of like the best case scenario. I think you said, what did you say last week? The Parker we were promised.
Yeah.
Like he would pull up from anywhere. He was slippery getting to the rim. He was really fun to watch. And I know some of that is highlights, and I know the rest of it is like, yeah, I'm watching a JUCO game, and defense there is a lot more like SLU's defense than VCU's typical defense. But this really was like the guy who you thought, okay, what's the best case scenario for this player at SLU? We're seeing it finally. We really are. And not only are we seeing it, but he's stringing games together. It's not just like every once in a while he goes off. Like he's there. He's really doing it. Again, we just need more than that, right?
Yeah.
Scoring's not the problem.
We had a little disagreement over a tweet. Yeah. So Stu Durando was around after the game, and apparently it was Sincere Parker getting shots up after the gym had cleared. And I kind of was like, look, like it's great, but you're practicing the thing you're a killer at. Like let's work on the shortcomings of the game. You know what I mean? Like I don't like it doesn't do anything for me for him to be out there shooting.
I understand that, but like I look at it like, okay, the dude's hot. He's feeling it. He's feeling confident, and he's feeling like he's in a place where he wants to go get up some more shots. And I'm fine with that because like if you say like his defense is broken, fine, but like, what do you do by yourself after a game to fix that? What is he
watch
gonna, like,
film, baby? Watch film.
Yeah. I mean, like there's always that, right? Like there's always that. Like it's very. I think that's right. Like you got to get in there and really watch yourself, and it's hard to do sometimes, but you got to watch yourself. And if Sincere really did, I think he would see a guy who kind of gets caught watching the ball and losing track of his man a lot of times. So by the time his man does get the ball, he's usually got enough room to do whatever he wants against Parker, and that's not what you want to see defensively. So there's definitely some individual stuff he has to work on, but it's a whole team problem, Zach. I mean, it's not just like one guy, losing his assignment. It's the whole team's defense is just broken here.
It's bad. You know what I will say? He had some really nice defensive possessions early in the game
Mm,
where he played really good man-to-man defense. I think he rushed some shots on some guys. I think he got a steal in there too. But I liked how present he was and how you know active I thought he was on defense but it just didn't last. And that's not to just single out Parker. It doesn't last for anybody on this team. The
mhm.
amount of easy baskets we give up is preposterous.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Fouling is a huge issue for this team. Um, I don't, I this team,
Well, we went over why they foul in the first place so much, and
yeah.
it's kind of a last resort when nothing else on defense is right, when you're not doing it well. And then it's not just the fouling, Zach, but in this game, it was bad fouls at bad times. I think about the technical foul that Hughes got.
You were like, what happened? I was like, well, he slammed the ball into his chest.
Well, so when I first saw it in the game, from like in live time, I couldn't quite see from that angle, and I will admit, not wearing glasses when I should be at night watching this thing from the couch. I didn't see him pop the ball down in Bamaseal's chest, but what they went for a loose ball, Bamaseal landed on Hughes. He got called for the foul just like he should have been, but getting up, Hughes said something to him and shoved the ball in his chest and got a tee. And then after that, VCU goes on a 9-0 run. And it was a really close game before
And,
that.
and Hughes missed the free throws.
He missed the free throw, and then VCU
Yeah.
goes on a 9-0 run. Yeah, so yeah, he missed the free throws that he was already getting. So it's just like I know you're frustrated, but like just suck that up and accept the foul. Like the guy got the foul. That's what
Yeah.
you want. And then Ezewiro, his usual bunch of like boneheaded, needless fouls. He's always good for those. Thames had 2 fouls in his first 3 minutes in the first half, which put him on the bench. Parker wound up with 4 in this game. It's it's everybody, Zach. It's a whole team problem, and it's because they don't do all the things on defense that you need to do to not put yourself in a position where your last option is to foul a guy.
One more little note on the fouls. I mean, the officiating in this game was super tight. I think everybody in the arena, like, I think you tweeted it out. Like, I was ready to tweet out exactly what you ended up tweeting out is that, hey, like, strap in, folks. This is going to be a
Yeah,
marathon of 5 minutes.
I think it was with 5:13 left, and there were 21 fouls already that half. And we wound it up with 44 for the whole game, and it just got tighter and tighter as the game went on. Like the second half was tighter than the first half, and over the course of the second half, it got like tighter and tighter. Like there was a lot of stuff. I was like, I mean, I didn't think they were, against like not giving SLU home court. I didn't. It wasn't like an imbalance between the teams. It was just the way they were calling the game.
Yeah.
They were calling it that tight, and that made it not the most enjoyable
I think
viewing experience.
I feel like we've gone down this road before. I feel like
It's,
we've said these exact same things.
I think every game feels like that when we allow a ton of points, when a team sets their season high mark, when the officiating is balanced but still not great. Um, yeah, it's a lot. It's it's a lot of the same things we hit all the time, but that's just how it goes at this point.
Some bright notes on offense. TJ Hargrove had 18 and 4. Jimerson and Ezewiro had 13 apiece. Brad was pretty good at the line. I thought, he had his boneheaded fouls, but you mentioned how much he was drawing fouls in this one.
He was, and there were times where it kind of looked like, okay, like I think he might be the smarter player in this a particular assignment. Like he was getting guys off their feet, making some post moves. getting guys to like bite on head fakes and stuff like that. And he was 9 of 11 for the line and from the line. And I was really happy with that. It was just then the fouls at the other end. You're like, Brad, what are you doing? Like, you've got these guys beat. You don't need to do that. So, aside from that, I thought a lot of his offense was pretty smart, even though it was mostly coming from the line in the end.
Um, Thames, 9 points in 17 minutes with a couple of really nice buckets. I think a nice three and then a kind of a slippery move to the basket to score.
Yeah, and stay out of foul trouble, and he'd have double digits easily. And he did try a couple times to do too much. There was one coast to coast layup attempt in particular where he tried to sort of, he was like Spider-Man going to the basket and did one too many twists and turns on the way up, and I think he missed it. And people were kind of on his case on the message boards and social media about that. But he was feeling pretty confident after a couple other nice layups like you referred to already. But he's just got to stay out of foul trouble. Again and again, we say it, but got to stay out of foul trouble.
Yeah, it's just, I like, I think Thames and Hughes do bring some more defense than anyone really else, but they play a lot of defense with their hands and their arms.
They do.
And there's just not a lot of, there's not a lot of like just technically sound, fundamental defensive movement,
Mm-hmm.
It's just the antithesis of anything that we've seen. I mean, and none of these, the veterans really haven't gotten better. And maybe they have, but not enough to make up for the fact that this team doesn't play well together defensively. I mean, you look at a guy like Jimerson, who had shown improvement up until this year. I thought he was getting better and better defensively every year, but now without a guy like Yuri Collins, a guy like, Fred Thatch, you can throw in there, any sort of defensive stopper. Jimerson's one of the better defenders out there at all times at the guard position. So he's taking on a tougher assignment now. Sincere Parker's never been a defender and not really played any minutes to where we could get an idea against like top talent. Now he's the first guy. Now he's got to be in there. Larry Hughes played 5-10 minutes a game last year. You did again against probably second teamers. It's just a lot of these guys have not improved enough to succeed in their new bigger roles. And I think that has much to do with the coaches not bringing them along and developing them as much as it has to do with personal work ethic.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you look at when you talked about Thames and Hughes in particular using their hands too much. Those are guys they're long, lean. They're kind of all arms and legs as younger players, and they've got to really, really work on their footwork and their hand checking, not extending their arms too long when they're making contact with another player. That's the kind of stuff that comes in time as you're kind of growing into your game, growing into your body a little bit more. I get that, but they've really got to stay focused on that because they can try and get away with a little too much, and that's harder to do when you're that long, right? When you're that long and all limbs at this point. So just something that they always have to be aware of. But Zach, the other issue here is SLU really got beat on the glass.
Yep. Yeah, defend and rebound. And this team does neither of those things.
Yeah.
Out rebounded 39-24 with VCU getting 19 second chance points off of 14 offensive rebounds. They have nobody. How many times am I going to say this? You had 40 minutes to give a transfer in the portal at the 5.
Yeah.
And we have Ezewiro. And Ezewiro would be a fine addition to a team if he had help. And to be honest, I'll be honest. You know who I really liked in this one?
Steph,
SVB.
yeah,
SVB.
yeah.
He had a very nice game for a freshman, and I thought he got hosed by the refs on that over the back call.
Yeah, I thought so too. But yeah, he certainly has, I think, more soundness when it comes to positioning. And
Yes.
that's I think Bruce's biggest issue.
Yes.
And I'll go to his play first because like Bruce this defensive rebound in particular, and this was a segment in the game in the first half where I was like jumping out of my skin, like, will somebody just grab the ball every time a defensive rebound opportunity would come down?
Mhm.
So he was a kind of a half step out of position. Ball comes up and he's tipping it, trying to tip it to a teammate on the defensive end. And it's like, Bruce, buddy, offense, fine. Anything you can do to keep the ball in play and give yourself another possession, fine. Defense, get your other arm up there and grab the ball. You
Yeah.
do not tip it because now you're putting a 50-50 ball out there. And it wound up, of course, in VCU's hands. That drove me insane. But
It also drove Travis Ford insane.
Ford and I on the same page
Mm.
as usual.
That's a red flag for you.
So their defensive rebounding is just as a team so bad. They're always out of position. They don't communicate at all. You don't really see the effort. I don't think conceptually defensive rebounding is all that hard. And so it always frustrates me more than anything else when I see a team be this bad at it. It's like watching a kids team play,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, will you guys just go get the ball?
They're like running around,
How do
chasing the
you
ball.
like I know they haven't seen as many balls come off of rims and they have no idea where it's going to go and stuff like that, but like box your man out
Mm-hmm.
and get the ball. Like I
Mm-hmm.
let's not complicate this, guys. And watching them get outworked and outpositioned on their own glass, it drives me up a wall to no end. And this game was, I think, one of the most egregious this season in terms of how poor defensive rebounding was.
Yeah. What did you think about Travis Ford's comments after the game on rebound or well, first of all, defense and how this team doesn't want to be physical. Like they need to learn to be physical on defense. Because I think this has been a drum he's been beating for a while now. And I mean, like, at what point do you just say, okay, we got to figure something else out? Like, it's not just go out there and defend, guys. Be physical. Because they
Yeah.
are being physical, illegally so.
Yeah, so there's a part of me like I believe him, right? If he's like this particular group of guys, I can't motivate or they're not as physical as I'm used to or whatever. It's like, you know what?
Do
he's probably right.
you
He's
know what the
probably
funny
right.
part? You know what the funny thing about this that he said this is? Did you see Patino's quote right before we
Yeah.
went?
Yeah,
Ah!
as we record on Sunday night, Patino has made some pretty remarkable comments about his own team at St.
Yeah,
John's,
they
and
sound oddly familiar.
they're making the rounds, and he's ripping into the talent level of his players. But anyway,
No, he said this team doesn't. This isn't. He said it was
he said a
literally,
lot, Zach. I mean,
but no, it was straight out of um, it was straight out of Ford's mouth. It really, really was.
yeah, some of it
Um,
was, but I think he went even farther with his
oh
comments.
yes, he said things that Travis Ford can only dream of saying. Um, he said, we kind of lost this season with the way we recruited. We recruited the antithesis of the way I coach. It's a good group. They try hard, but they're just not very tough.
Yeah,
I mean, Ford couldn't have said it better himself.
yeah, and obviously Ford learned a lot from Patino.
It's
Uh,
incredible. If you can't if you tell me they're not texting day and night, like that right there is enough. That's
yeah,
evidence.
but circling back to Ford specifically on this game, he may very well be right about this group of players and what they don't do and what they don't seem to get. That's fine, but it's your job to make something work with them, right? Like we've said it before, like simplify it, strip it down, give them an insultingly easy, fundamental high school style man-to-man defense, whatever you got to do to make it easier on them because they're not guarding at all. Like VCU is not a good scoring team, and they come into and they've been scoring even less lately, 50 something a game, and this winning streak. Their defense is so good. Then they come into your gym and score 95 and make it look effortless. That's a real problem. That's the most points SLU has, by the way, ever allowed for an A10 opponent. And it didn't look unbelievable, right? It's not like VCU, had a guy scoring 45 or something like that. I mean, like they just carved up the defense with ease. So I guess my point is, even if he's right, he's letting himself off the hook, because like if they're not getting it, what can they get? What can you do to solve for that? What can you do to mitigate, if not completely solve it? That's on him. So like half right, halfway there, but at some point he's got to go. I haven't been able to figure it out. I don't know what to do with this team. They just don't do anything well defensively.
It's now, right now, as we record this, it's 8:13 p.m. on Sunday evening. I'm going to steal a line from Caleb Presley here. Pete, can we do a new segment presented by Two Men in a Garden?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see where you're going with this.
So Travis Ford is they're about to release an interview. Martin Kilcoyne, I believe, on Fox 2.
Yes.
See Fox 2? Okay. So Martin Kilcoyne sat down with Travis Ford, and I'm trying to find the tweet now. I lost it. It's basically he's going to talk about, I guess they're going to talk about the season and whether he's worried about getting fired. The actual tweet is, tonight at 9 p.m., Fox 2, my visit with Coach T. Ford, St. Louis men's basketball coach, on this year's bad season. Is he worried he'll be fired? How does he view his 8-year run at SLU? Pete, I want you to put on your Travis Ford hat in this new segment presented by Two Men in a Garden, and sit there. Travis Ford sitting there in this photo that clearly wasn't staged. And I want you to tell us what Travis Ford is gonna say in this interview. Remember, we're recording this at 8:14 p.m.
All right, Zach's proving it with his phone.
Right.
So yeah, we're about 45 minutes before that show kicks off. But so Zach, I think he's going to start with the fact that he's never had a team with this many injuries, and just dealing with those injuries all year has been a real burden. They started and played almost the entire non-conference schedule without the guy who was going to be their starting center. They played the first 11 games without him. They had another player leave the team unexpectedly mid-season, who was a starter when the season started out. Sincere Parker, who, as everybody knows, has been on fire lately, only played the first 4 games for us before coming back halfway into the conference season, and only now is getting healthy and showing what he could have been doing all season long. Right? It's just a group of guys who they're good guys. They're trying their hardest. There's a lot that they got to learn, especially on the defensive end, and they're just not there yet. And we're just, as a unit, close, but not as close as we need to be, not as disciplined or as tough as we need to be. And just it's a shame that things broke this way, because you wonder how things could have been different had we been healthy, had all our guys been eligible, not getting hurt. Mike Meadows, we just lost Mike Meadows for the year. Now we've got a young point guard out there alone instead of having a 50-year senior alongside him to help guide him. Just a lot of really tough breaks this year, and it shows you how fine a line it is between a successful season and ultimately an unsuccessful one.
All right, Pete, now we're going to turn it around, and you're going to ask me, me as Travis Ford, am I worried about being fired?
All right, Zach. All right, Travis, are you worried, given how this season has gone, are you worried about losing your job as head coach of St. Louis University?
No, you know what? A lot of people like to talk online. They like the negativity. I don't really get into that. I'm not worried about it. All I can control is one game at a time, trying to get these young men to be tough on defense to rebound, to really give it their all and make a run here at the end of this season and prove what this team can really be. Because I've seen them in practice, and it's a different team in practice. So, no, I'm not worried about what anybody else is saying. We're worried about what's going on in our locker room and what we can control, and we're going to take it one game at a time. Still a lot of season left to be played.
I think you nailed it. I think that's it. And you were more committed to the bit than I was too, because I started out saying third person what he would say, and then I shifted into first person just recklessly. I needed to rehearse that a little bit more, but you got it on the first take.
I think I'm going to move to Hollywood, Pete.
You should. You're wasting your time in St. Louis.
I know. Following this goddamn program. Well, that was Being Travis Ford, a new segment presented by Two Men in a Garden. Speaking of Two Men in a Garden, Pete, we love Two Men in a Garden.
We do, Zach. We really love Two Men in a Garden. Last week, I talked about one of their partner products, Float Trip Jalapenos. And
is that like Float Trip cherries soaked in Everclear?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but this is for the people who just want to sit there and eat a jar of jalapenos or pickles or whatever out on the huzzah. But this
River,
week,
please.
I tried their
cultured people.
I mean, I was uncultured. I think everybody knows that by now.
Yes.
Float Trip pickles. So this one, the label says sweet and spicy pickles and jalapenos. I cracked it open actually today because I knew I had to do another ad read, and I had this in the back of the fridge and hadn't gotten to it yet. Opened it up today, and I got to say, these are some of the most unique pickles I've ever had. The label's a little misleading. It's not pickles and jalapenos. It's really just pickles. And it's kind of the hamburger chip style where they're thin, ridge cut pickles. They're sweet, they're spicy, and they've got that kind of vinegar, dill, traditional pickle thing going on at the same time. Really unique, complex flavor profile. I liked it a lot. Honestly, it's a shame it's not burger season right now because I think these would add a lot of zing to your burger. Good crunch. I really, really like the flavor of these things, Zach. And as I've said before, I'm not the guy who likes sweetness in my pickles typically, but this has just the right amount. So head over to twomeningarden.com, check out their friends' products, go to the section for Float Trip, pickles, relish, and jalapenos, and grab these things. They're really good, really unique. And it's all made in the same place, Two Men in a Garden, and get $9.99 nationwide shipping over there at twomeningarden.com.
This picture that Gilcoin tweeted out.
Yeah.
Like there's so much, like his desk has a Gatorade and a water on it as if he's doing a press conference after a game. I think that's funny. I love that. That's so ridiculous.
It's a nice office. The offices have come a long
yeah,
way.
that's a new that's in the Champions Center.
It's in the Champions Center.
I don't know what Travis Ford's doing in there.
I mean, yeah.
I thought it was funny.
I'm laughing. Thank you. I'm gonna let it hang.
Yeah. Let's go around the A10 where things aren't any less sicko. Tuesday the 13th, 75-59, Dayton takes down Duquesne. It was a really tight game until it wasn't. Dayton scored 20 points in a row to put it away at the end. I was really hoping that Duquesne was going to win this one. I had that thought in the morning. I really did.
Dayton's had a lot of
close calls.
Affairs. Yeah.
Yes. Mason 90, Washington 67. That's the Georges. Mason led by as much as 30 in the first half. This was over real. This is the antithesis of the Dayton Duquesne game. This game was over like 10 minutes in.
George Mason had an unbelievable non-conference. They kind of have been a little bit of a disappointment in conference. And man, oh man, and we'll get to this soon when we preview them. But George Washington has really been bad lately. I got to say, Mason is clearly the better George.
Yes. Neither of them are great Georges. Davidson 71, LaSalle 56. Not surprising there. Wednesday, the 14th, UMass 69. Nice. Richmond 59. Bad news for a first place team on the bubble, and it was Richmond, as I believe a home loss to a UMass squad is going to do them in for an at-large bid possibility.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Bonaventure 85, Fordham 67, Loyola 64, St. Joe's 59. This Loyola team, I think we might have the rumors of their demise have been premature.
They've come on really strong. I think they've actually won 9 of 10 now that I think of it. They've looked great.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like it.
I know.
This Dayton team, we're going to talk about that 70, their next game against Fordham, but is this Dayton team in any danger of losing an at-large bid with losses here?
Sure. They absolutely could.
Like,
like they look like a lock right now, but I think any A10 team is a couple shocking losses away from losing it. The thing so far, Dayton's lost 2 conference games. They've both been quality losses, right? Like they've been on the road, they've been to good teams. They haven't affected their AP ranking. They really haven't affected their net much, but I think Dayton is at the point now where a bad loss here could really hit them hard.
They almost suffered one. Talk about this Fordham game.
78-70, Dayton pulled one out over Fordham. Again, always a little bit of a close call, and Fordham would have been a really bad loss for them. Richmond, meanwhile, got back on track. George Washington will do that. 90-74 is the score there. LaSalle 82, UMass 81. That one surprised me, as I'll get into in a minute. Duquesne 66, St. Joe's 56. Tough week for St. Joe's, by the way. St. Bonaventure 81, Zach. Davidson 80 in overtime, and this was a controversial ending. Did you see it?
No.
So what happened here is
what happened was
Connor Kuchera, I think he had like 29 points in the game. He is Dayton has a 3 to tie, or sorry, Davidson has attempts a 3 to tie it in overtime, to get their own rebound, and he winds up with the ball just what appears to be outside the line, shoots 3, nails it, and it kind of falls back a little bit in the process. The refs go over to the monitors to review it. Davidson thinks, number one, they've just tied the game with a 3-pointer, and they think number 2, they were called for a foul, and he's going to get a free throw attempt to win it with like no time left on the clock. As it turns out, the refs never called a foul, and he had a toe on the line. So it wound up being a long 2 instead of a 3. So instead of tied and a free throw to win it, they're down 1 with no chance to win it. And it's game over. And they were, naturally Davidson fans were upset. Bonaventure fans were like, they never called a foul. Pretty wild ending. And, I looked at it. You see the ref's hand go up. I didn't think it was for a foul. I thought it was for him just to signal that it was like a 3-point attempt, right? But then it turned out his toe was on the line, and they showed a lot of replays, and only one of the camera angles really picked up that. But yeah, his toe was on the line. I think in the end they got it right. There wasn't a foul, but man, oh man. And then Zach, we just had one more A10 game this week. Loyola 77, Rhode Island 67 on Sunday the 18th.
Wasn't there a not famous Billiken game, but like a Billiken game where we had a toe on the line on a 3-pointer when you were there?
Yeah, there was definitely one.
It was at Scottrade, I feel like.
Reggie Bryant had one. I think it was against Arizona.
I think it was a big game. It was a big game.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, was that the Chris Sloan slam? Same game?
Was that the same game? Because now I'm thinking, I think Reggie did that at Southern Miss or something like that. Now I'm thinking somebody else may have been the one who had the time. Was it Fisher? It may have been Josh Fisher.
I don't, dude. I remember it was a marquee game. I remember it was a Scottrade, and I got nothing else. Arizona sounds right. Doesn't really matter. As a lot of things I talk about specifically. A10 survivor picks, Pete. You're still alive. Oh, no, you're not. You're done.
I'm not.
You're
As
not. You're
of
not.
as of that
You picked
stupid.
LaSalle.
No, I didn't pick LaSalle. I picked them to lose. I picked LaSalle to
Oh.
lose. I had UMass beating LaSalle.
Oh.
And
No.
that's what got me. They LaSalle won by one, right?
Oh
Like I
God.
thought, okay, a lot of the teams this week that were like the obvious ones to pick are the exact teams that I had already used. So I had to use a new team. I figured UMass against LaSalle would get it done. UMass had been playing pretty well, LaSalle not so much. Tied in last place with SLU. I thought that was pretty safe, and that would get me through to next week when we had much more favorable um, games to pick from, but unfortunately, I didn't get there. So we are all done for the season, Zach.
Yes, we are. Another year we failed. Next up, Tuesday the 20th at Duquesne and Saturday the 24th versus George Washington. Unfortunately, we only know like one fan of each of these programs that exists. And none of them do a podcast. So we're going to try to just preview this ourselves.
We are. And Zach, before we do, just to close the loop on this, it was Reggie Bryant against Arizona, December 6, 2003. Three-pointer with 2 seconds left was changed to a two-pointer, and we lost 68 to 67.
Never doubt when you and I put our heads together to figure out what happened in a Billiken game
That's right.
20 years ago.
So let's fast forward back to the present.
Yes.
And we're going to look at our I guess the future.
Another red and blue team. It's you know.
And it's going to be a red out, by the way. They're telling all their fans to wear red on Tuesday, the 20th, which is when we face Duquesne. The Dukes are 15-10 overall. They're 5-7 in the A10, and the league's arguably biggest disappointment.
They have to be.
Yeah, but they were picked to finish fourth, and a lot of their fans thought they were going to be first for whatever reason.
I love, like, I know we stink on ice, but I love watching another A10 team who thinks they're poised for a breakout season, and then just
they overachieved last season. They were picked to finish last, and they finished kind of in the middle of the league unexpectedly. And then they thought, well, we're bringing some dudes back. We're going to run it back. It's going to be great. And they've kind of been a mess. But like I said, 5-7 in the league. Keith Dambrod's in his seventh season as head coach. His results have been very up and down. You get very mixed thoughts from Duquesne fans on what they should do with him moving forward. Really, they're led by two fifth-year senior guards. Day Grant is 6'2", 180. He was a member of the preseason all-conference first team, and he's averaging 16.7 points a game. He shoots a lot of threes, but he's barely over 32%, so not particularly efficient there. You can't put him on the line, though. He shoots 96%. I think he might be the best free throw shooter in D1. He's the smaller of the two starting guards, but he's the shooting guard, the two guard in this backcourt. The point guard is Jimmy Clark. He's 6'3", 175 and scores 14.8 points per game. He actually started his career at VCU for 2 seasons before doing a JUCO year and then coming back to the A10 last year with Duquesne. He's a bit turnover prone, so I would put some pressure on him, but he also creates a lot of steals at the other end. He's not efficient from outside or the free throw line, but he is pretty good inside the arc and getting to the rim, particularly. Outside of those two, it's really a lot of role players. The next 5 guys down the list average between 6.1 and 7.6 points per game. If you're looking for a potential hot hand, David Dixon has scored double digits in the past couple games. He had 17 in their most recent game against St. Joe's. He's listed at 6'9", 215, and probably the closest thing they have to a real number 3. They have some pretty good length between Dixon, the Drame twins, and then 6'10", Dusan Mahorcic. If you recognize his name, he was a former SLU recruit, I think twice. He's played for like 6 different schools somehow. And they're a nice shot blocking team. Defense is their calling card. There's nothing that really stands out on the offensive end. Really, inconsistency has been a problem for them in A10 play. They were 10-3 in the non-conference against a honestly soft schedule, but they got to the league and started out 0-5, and that's when we saw their fans really melting down, completely losing their mind. Then they won the next 3. They've kind of alternated losses and wins since then. They've beaten Bonaventure twice. They've lost to Dayton twice. They've split with St. Joe's. Otherwise, they can't really beat the top half of the league. I'd say they just kind of stink. They're not great. If this were a weekend game, I'd probably go. Pittsburgh's like 4.5 hours from me. But unfortunately, it's never a weekend game for some reason, and I haven't been up there to see one yet. But I would love to go see the ductwork free UPMC field house or whatever they call it now. Because it looks like a pretty nice arena.
Yeah, I really want to beat this team like
Yeah,
terribly. Like we,
yeah, me too.
if we win two games the rest of the year, let it be Duquesne and Dayton.
Dayton. Yeah.
Yes. Um, we get George Washington at home. I think this has to be a win for us. This George Washington team is absolutely horrendous.
They are. They are. And look, LaSalle just got their third win. SLU is still sitting on two, so SLU is now alone in last place again. All we need to do is tie with LaSalle in order to not get the 15 seed and get the 14 seed instead. But these two games are going to be good opportunities for that, and especially this one. GW's 14-11 doesn't look bad overall, but they're 3-9 in the A10. Chris Caputo's in his second year as head coach. He finished 500 last season. James Bishop is the guy. We know who he is by now. If you've been an A10 fan at all, he's the leading scorer, and he was a preseason all-conference first teamer, just like Grant for Duquesne. He scores 17.4 points per game, which is down a surprising amount from 21.5 points last season. His 2-point percentage, Zach, has decreased to 41% from over 50%, which is kind of crazy. He's a little better from three and from the line, though. So he kind of makes up for it a little bit there, but taking it inside has not been as successful for him this season. He's a fifth-year senior, like I said, and everybody pretty much knows who he is by now. They've also got a 6'7", 235-pound freshman named Darren Buchanan. He averages 15.2 points per game and 6.7 rebounds per game. And another 6'8", 210-pound freshman named Garrett Johnson, who averages 13.4 points per game and 5.6 rebounds per game. Maximus Edwards is back for his sophomore year. He's 6'5", 215. He averages 12.6 and 6.8. The next two scorers are also freshmen, and they're guards. So it's pretty crazy when you look at the top 6, 7 of this team. They're really, really young, like the youngest team in the league, especially if you take Bishop out. Really young. They don't get much offensive production at all out of upperclassmen besides Bishop. So what does it all add up to? A pretty bad defensive team. They allow 78.1 points per game, which is 328th in the nation. They don't foul much at all, but they don't force many turnovers. They do average over 5 shot blocks per game, but over half of those are coming from their senior center, Babatunde Akingbola or Akingbola. He's
You did your best.
Yeah, and I can never remember either because he's really a role player, right? He's got a ton of length, but he's got no offensive game at all. Every time you go through like their numbers and see like, oh, they actually do this pretty well. The other team, the opponent, does it slightly better. So they shoot a lot of threes, but they give up a lot of threes. They average 38.5 rebounds per game, but opponents score or average 39 rebounds against them. In fact, they're second to last in Division One, second to last in field goals allowed because they play at such a fast pace. They're top 25 in Ken Palm's adjusted tempo. They also give up 12 offensive rebounds per game, which I guess is not all that surprising with a team that uses that many freshmen. Um, Crazy, crazy, crazy. But the biggest factor here, Zach, is that they're on an 8-game losing streak, right? So they started 3-1 in the league. They lost that first game that I couldn't believe, that triple overtime game against Fordham, rattled off 3 wins and looked like they would be, a team to at least beat in this conference. And they've been terrible since then. Most of these games have not been close at all. The smallest margin of victory for their opponent, I guess, in this stretch has been 8 twice, and everything else has been a double-digit loss. So they're lucky to lose by 8 lately. This game has the potential to be an all-time stinker or an all-time record in points because you've got the 2 worst defenses in the league squaring off, 2 offenses with players capable of going off on any night. Parker, Bishop, a few other guys probably with a chance to do that as well. This is a fun one, Zach, because I feel like this is an A10 Twitter sicko matchup if there ever was one. It's going to be high scoring, bad defense, 2 bad teams duking it out. It's going to be a really interesting game, and I don't know if anyone in St. Louis is going to show up to watch it.
I already hate it. It's literally just going to be the entire Atlantic 10 Twitter laughing.
It is.
This is like
I
there's so much
go
wrong.
going through George the scout for George. I was just like, oh, we just need to like we're gonna be made fun of basically for like
Yes,
3 hours that night. It's all it's gonna be. They're just gonna be making fun of everyone involved in that game.
correct. That's exactly what's going to happen.
So
I, I
prepare yourself.
I for one cannot wait to listen to this Travis Ford interview with Martin Kilcoyne to find out how we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Billikens Hippos on whatever night that is.
The 24th.
Yeah, the 24th.
Yeah.
They really should have gone with Hippos. They're like, I'm never not gonna call them the Colonials.
I don't know. I gotta say I think I like Revs better. Revolutionaries.
Well,
I
the
like
best, the funniest part of the whole thing is that the George Mason George Washington rivalry is the Revolutionary rivalry.
right. So they just took the word. Yeah.
Well, that's one way to get one over on your rival, I guess.
They could have gone with Patriots just to really frustrate George Mason. Just
Oh
like the ultimate
gosh,
troll move. George Washington,
yes. The pet. No, just go
Patriots,
by Pats.
Pats, go Pats.
Um, Pete women's basketball, an up and down week for this team. They played a middling to below average Loyola team on Wednesday the 14th and looked really, really good. Only to turn around and really just have a tough time with Duquesne. The Loyola game was a lot of fun. They
Yeah.
wore pink. It was on Valentine's Day. I really liked the accented pink jerseys. It looked nice. It wasn't overdone. And
Hmm.
they're Nike again too, which is really cool. I haven't gone maybe the last couple years, but I believe they were doing off-branded jerseys for the game, and then I don't remember if I don't know if they were auctioning them off or raffling them off
Hmm.
or what it was. Um, this Loyola team, Loyola chipped away at the Billikens' 19-point halftime lead over the third and fourth quarters, but it wasn't enough. This Loyola team was pressing, and Martinez was just running through them at times, like
Hmm.
running by them, even with the bum knee. Uh,
Yeah.
it was, I don't know what they're going to do with this Loyola team. McMakin, I mean, McMakin's been McMakin. She's still not super reliable unless she is on. But I think her improvement really has been the situational awareness that she has developed. In this one, she didn't need to really be, she was having a really bad night in this one, but she didn't need to stop shooting because we were playing so well everywhere else on the floor. So she was allowed to keep shooting. She just really never did get it together in this one. The Billiken slash line in this one was 50, 44, 80. Loyola shot under 37% and had just two fast break points, despite the fact that they press. SLU locked it down defensively, but they slipped a little in the second half. Loyola had a player in this one that was having an absolute nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
SLU was just abusing her. She had multiple plays where you were just like, oh, you poor thing. You just like, I think she fumbled a ball on like a wide open layup and then just could not get it in the
Yeah.
basket after that. Loyal, Brooklyn Gray. I really like what Brooklyn Gray has brought to this team. She's unconventional in her game. She scares me to death when she starts her dribble, but
Yeah.
I like she's very like she can go down low. She reminds me a little bit of like a Jordan Goodwin Jordair Jet. Just very strong, very low to the ground, but also she's big for a guard too.
She is. Yeah.
So
Big physical
she
guard.
can really back down her players and get deep in the paint. And she does a lot of damage that way. She had 22 points on 8 of 11 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3 and 4, 6 from the line in 31 minutes. She did foul out, but in a game that can't happen in a game that is close, but in this one, you'll be okay with it. Peyton Kennedy. Again, another player who has just come so far since
Mhm.
she's been here. I think she was just a spot up shooter early and then just has completely rounded out her game. 16 points on 6 of 11 shooting. As we talked about, making a tough night. 5 of 19 shooting, 10 points. Only player on SLU to be under 40% from the field because she took a lot of shots. And they were open shots too. They were good shots. It wasn't like she was forcing it. The ball was getting to her. She had a shot. Take
Mhm.
it. Go ahead. Uh Martinez, 23 minutes off the bench, 6 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, 2 assists, 3 turnovers. Absolutely gutsy performance from her in this one. Just the peak Julia Martinez moment. We talked about Jordan Goodwin on the his new team. I can't think of him right now. Where's he at?
Memphis,
He's
Memphis
on
Grizzlies.
Memphis now. It was the pure Jordan Goodwin situation with these first 2 games with Memphis. This was the quintessential Julia Martinez play where she tweaks her knee or ankle. I don't know what. Not 3 seconds later, she's diving for a loose ball, getting that loose ball, and then making a play. It just she just lays it all out on the line every time.
Yeah, she makes those trainers very nervous.
Yeah, she got taken back to the tunnel, and I went over. I was like, because I was sitting right behind the women's bench. I was like, yeah, let's see if she's coming back in.
Yeah.
She was putting her shoe back on and ready to go. She wore the pink tape in this one, and I thought she was going against that pro wrestling convention of highlighting your injury.
That's true. That's a good point. No, she's fearless though, man.
Um, they had some names on this Loyola team, but my favorite was Thorana Kilka Karhaj, which is a mouthful and a half.
What do they put on the back? Is it just Car Hodge on the back of her jersey?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
I think Colin was calling her Kilka Karhaj. I don't think he
Was
was. I think I don't. Well, I think it was like a full name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know. That's an odd one when you have an Icelandic heritage, because the naming conventions are so different. Um,
Yeah. It's a unique one for sure. Is she Icelandic? I'm
yes,
I'm I'm looking her up right now. Yeah, she's
yes,
from Keflavik, Iceland.
of
Wow.
course. Who doesn't know Keflavik, Iceland?
Yeah, it's interesting though because normally, like Ingvi, the last name would be Goodmanson, right? Like
Right,
so they all end in son, but then which means that female surnames are usually daughter,
right,
right? So
daughter.
so it ends
Yeah,
in Dottir.
yeah. So this
So
one, I mean, I guess you'd have to see. Uh, I'm gonna have to look that up because I'm surprised like the Loyola media guide or whatever doesn't have an
mhm,
explanation on that. That would be something you would. That's totally a Brian Kunderman thing to have that explanation.
right.
Um, but the that Jekyll and Hyde up and down week 82-65 loss against Duquesne on Saturday the 17th.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde week indeed. And I don't know about you, Zach, but this result kind of surprised me because we
Oh,
had talked about last week they had a really good opportunity to win out here. And Duquesne was fifth at the time, and now they're up to third. This was definitely the toughest team they had left, but nonetheless, I thought we would give them more of a game than this, even in a loss. Duquesne got out to an 11-point lead after the first quarter, and even though the next 3 quarters were close, the Dukes outscored SLU in all 4 periods, which is always a little disconcerting to me. This was the second worst shooting percentage for SLU all season long, 32.4% from the field, just 22 of 68 shots. And then they were 28.6% or 6 of 21 from three. Not great. Duquesne was, in the meantime, was 49% from the field, 39% from three. And that's really the game right there. It wasn't turnovers, fouls, free throw shooting, rebounding, any of that. It was just bad shooting. And, I guess you got to credit Duquesne's defense at least a little bit there. But SLU did also struggle with Duquesne's size. I think you said this was really a game where not having Flowers was an
mhm.
issue. She probably could have been the difference maker here, even in a game with this kind of margin. Duquesne also, they really spread out the scoring, right? They had 5 players in double figures, no one over 13 points. So everyone was right there. And I think their bench players had like 9, 8, and 6. So there were like 8 different players scoring just about the same. Kylie McMakin had a pretty good game here, 24 points on 8 of 19 from shooting 3 of 7 from three. Peyton Kennedy had 13. Brooklyn Gray had 12. Little inefficient in Gray's case, but Julia Martinez had 10 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Look, like I said, Duquesne was 5th heading into this week. Strongest remaining team on SLU's schedule, but we really thought that coming off that Rhode Island win and looking at 6 winnable games, with this one being at home, we would at least have a chance to run the table. But this is not a bad Duquesne team. They're pretty good. They've won 5 straight now, and they're now in the mix of like a 3-team logjam right outside the top 2. So they're going to have a chance to be a top 4 team heading into the conference tournament. They're solid, right? I think maybe I took them for granted a little bit, but they're a pretty solid team.
I thought the Billikens did a really good job of kind of, Meg McConnell is going to be the name that people are talking about going into the game. Yeah. I thought we did a great job on her for the most part. I thought she didn't really get into it until like the late third, early fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was the size issue. I thought Julia Martinez did an outstanding job on Meg McConnell, and this Duquesne team just had the size, and it's height in the women's game is a bit different. It's much more of an advantage.
It really is. You mentioned Brooklyn Gray being that kind of bigger physical guard. She would have been a power forward back when I was in college. Like it's evolved very fast, and it's a big differentiator for sure.
Oh yeah, very much an Angie Lewis. If you want to remember that name,
I knew Angie. I had classes with Angie.
Remember some guys. Let's remember some gals.
Yeah, yeah. No, that it's amazing how fast the game has evolved and how much size there is now in the sport.
Like I said, you're not going to find 2 people that can sit here and remember something that happened 20 years ago, like these two, like us two. Yeah, let's talk some baseball. I mean, I got the gear on.
You do, yeah. I have that jersey too up in my closet. But,
yeah,
I guess I should have broken it out.
Have you put it on?
Not yet this season. It's a little cold though right now. There's snow on the ground here.
Dude, it really is like one of my favorite pieces that I own. So thank you to Hendo for sure for hooking that up a couple of years ago. Baseball, SLU picked first in the A10 preseason poll. Top 7 teams all received at least one first place vote. And I don't know, there could be a lot of parity this season, and the league may be stronger than usual, but like baseball is such a sicko sport.
Yeah.
College baseball. It's fun and it's entertaining as hell, but there's no predicting what you're going to get night in, night out.
That's absolutely right.
You've got the metal bats. You've got, bullpens full of guys that are young, inexperienced, and no lead is safe in college baseball, especially in the midweek.
Yeah, that's for sure. No lead is safe indeed. But Zach, I think SLU maybe got as close to a safe lead as they could have in this one.
Yeah, but I mean, you talk about sicko. I mean, VCU just beat NC State yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. Number 13, NC State. And
they were supposed to be they were predicted to be like a top seed.
Mm-hmm.
21-10. This is one of those games where if it's like a football game, this is exciting. This is a fun game to be at, right? Baseball,
it's a high scoring Big Ten game.
Baseball, this is a chore. 21-10 baseball game is an absolute slog. Like I'm leaving in the 6th. I'm sorry, guys. I can't do it.
Yeah, and the score is probably much different at that point usually, right? I mean, like this is one that evolved every inning. Like there were very few blank frames in this one. So this was a win over St. Thomas in Port Charlotte, Florida on Friday the 16th. SLU had 7 in the first, 4 in the second, 5 in the third, and they weren't done there. Hayden Moore, Tyler Fogarty, Drew Winters, and Graham Mastros all homered. Moore and Fogarty led the Bills with 4 RBIs apiece, and then Mastros and Patrick Losey each scored 4 times. To their credit, St. Thomas managed to get at least 1 run across home in every inning except the first. So they didn't have a bad day at the plate either. Just ran into an offensive juggernaut in SLU. If you're the starter, Jackson Holmes, you have to love a game like this. He went 3 2/3 innings, gave up 5 hits and 5 earned runs, and still his victory was never really in doubt. That's a big thank you to the boys when you're not feeling it necessarily that day, or they're just getting to you. St. Thomas stuck with their starter for 2 1/3 innings, in which he had 14 runs across the plate, 13 of those earned. That's a tough debut, Zach, if you're that guy.
Not great, Bob. Not great at all. 13-8 win to follow it up against Illinois State in Port Charlotte, Florida on Friday the 16th. The Billikens had a 3-1 lead going into the third. Gave up 6 runs in the top of the inning. But wait, there's more. They answered with 6 of their own in the bottom, just as it was starting to get a little bit nervy. Unfortunately, all these games are on Flow Sports, so we kind of had to go from the stats. Tommy Ray started, but gave up 7 earned runs. Jack Weber got the win in 4 innings of middle relief. Evan Gray got the save as the Billikens added a late few insurance runs. Hayden Moore homered again. Austin Newig also went deep with a 3-run shot. Patrick Cloesy led SLU with 4 runs batted in. The Tommies had to be having nightmares Friday evening because they got to take on the Billikens once again Saturday the 17th.
Yeah,
Ping,
they sure did.
Ping. That's
Ping.
all they heard in their dreams.
And they heard it some more on Saturday. 15-7 was the win this time for SLU, but SLU needed a big rally to win, and they delivered. St. Thomas was up 7-2 heading into the bottom of the 6th. SLU tied it with a 5-run inning and then got 7 more in the 7th and added an insurance run in the 8th. Nothing spectacular in this one, not a bunch of home runs like in the first couple games in Port Charlotte. They just strung a bunch of singles together and took advantage of 5 St. Thomas errors, which sure came in handy. Cole Smith is the one who opened the floodgates with an RBI single in the 6th. Moore and Neweg had 3 RBIs each. SLU used 5 pitchers. Charlie Weber started, and the first reliever, Henry Littman, is the one who ended up with the win. Right place, right time sometimes is what it comes down to in middle relief in college baseball, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you look at these games, and these are all prime examples of what we're talking about. The Billikens go into the 4th inning, the bottom of the 4th, with a 16-2 lead, and then from there they give up. I mean, they score 5 runs in the 5th, 6th, and 7th all together, but the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. I mean, St. Thomas scores, what is that? 3, 7, 8 runs, over the, so I mean, the swings are there. And in the next game, you look at that Illinois State game, and we talked about it straight up, is that Illinois State is up. It's that 6-run swing there in the 3rd on both sides. Illinois State gets 6 runs. Oh my! In Major League Baseball, that's a game.
It's over.
That's the game. But in the 3rd inning, you can come back and hit and get 6 runs there. And then in that final game, of course, you're looking at that 5 and 7 runs in the 6th and 7th, where you've got a 7-0 lead. You're the Tommies. Then in the bottom of the 6th, you're like, okay. Again, if it's Major League Baseball, 6-run lead heading into the 6th, you're done. It's over. Like, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. But in this one, again, 12 runs in 2 innings, and it's a totally different ball game from there on out. Baseball is just an insane sport, especially in the non-conference. The Illinois State game on Sunday the 18th was canceled due to weather. The next up for the base Billikens will be 3-game series versus Western Illinois in Millington, Tennessee. Good old Millington. You ever been there?
I have not. No, I don't think I've ever even heard of it.
Yeah, me neither. Friday the 23rd through Sunday the 25th. Softball Billikens played in the Roar City Invitational in Nashville, hosted by Tennessee State. A tough weekend for these Billikens. Cancellations, some losses. Overall, not great, Pete.
No, not great, but I will say their games today started later than scheduled. They're playing Indiana State right now, and they're up 4-0 in the top of the fourth. So there's that, right? But first off, this weekend they lost 5-0 against Tennessee Martin on Friday the 16th. UT Martin picked up 3 runs in the first, 2 more in the fourth. Their leadoff batter hit a solo shot that ended up really being all they needed. Natalie Sullivan and Allie Marietta had 2 hits apiece, but they're not that close to each other in the lineup, so SLU just couldn't string any hits together. Taylor Hockman took the loss. She pitched the first 3 1/3 and gave up 4 earned runs. Isabel Royal came on in relief and finished the last 2 2/3 innings. Like you said, Tennessee State and Indiana State were both canceled on Saturday the 17th due to weather, but SLU got back on the diamond against Tennessee State on Sunday the 18th, Zach.
Yeah, they did. And I forgot that this is the first year of the Nike uniforms.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Looking at the picture, as it was really they're wearing the pinstripes, looking classy as hell.
Yeah, they look sharp.
Sunday against Tennessee State, they dropped a 5-3 decision. Na Simpson homered in the second. Armstrong for Tennessee State singled. Dude, I have no idea. I'm trying to read this off the box score because it just happened and we haven't had time to update it.
Yeah, well, Tennessee State's
they scored 5 straight runs to start the game. Jane Kineski singled up the middle, drove in 2 RBIs, including Newbanks and Sullivan. What is that? Say Allie? Why is it capitalized?
It looks like all.
Yeah, Allie Marietta singled to left field. Oh, I'm so confused by that. Marietta singled to left field, driving in Sullivan and sending Newbanks to third to make it 5-3. But that is all the Billikens could muster late. And as you said, they're up 5-0 on the Sycamores as of this recording.
Yeah, they are. So hopefully they hang on in that one to pull 1 win back from the weekend. But yeah, shame to have 2 cancellations. You know, they've had a lot of games washed out so far this season. Just unlucky.
Run us down the track and field results after I tell you that next up for the softball Billikens will be Western Kentucky for the Hilltopper Classic. It features Detroit, Eastern Illinois.
Yeah, in track and field, they were at the Don DeNoon Invitational at SIUC on Saturday the 17th, and did pretty well. This is the last regular season event. On the women's side, Samantha Kunzo won the weight throw with a toss of 59.475. Aslan Hyder was first in the pole vault with a mark of 10 and 5 1/4. The way that they write this, I agree, Zach, is so weird. Sydney Williams and Caroline Bell finished first and second in the high jump, respectively, with jumps of 4'11". Brianna Cummings and Avery Minnis came in first and second in the mile with times of 5:23.97 and 5:26.95, respectively. And Star Scott won the 800 meters with a time of 2:22.34. On the men's side, Evan Brenderman won the long jump at 22 feet 1 inch, while Jaden Kawaido finished first in the high jump at 6'6". Lucas Ivanowski and Kyle Gurich placed first and second in the mile with times of 5:23.97 and 5:26.95. Those are not the right times at all. No, sorry, this is coming off SLU's website. They put the wrong times in. I'll correct those eventually, but they copied the women's times, unfortunately, twice. Their times were lower than that. I know it. The Bills 4x400 meter relay team also finished first with a time of 3:25.96. Like I said, that's the last regular season meet they've got. The A10 Indoor Championships are February 23rd and 24th down in Virginia Beach. So they'll head down there in a few days and hopefully show well. It's always hard to say, Zach, how where they stand in indoor because they never do team scores, right? It's all individual scores. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see how things shake out down in Virginia Beach.
So I'm learning that name is actually the actual Irish pronunciation is Ashland.
Oh, what I said, Aslan,
I
Aslan.
well the Americanized pronunciation is Iceland.
All right, I get it. See, and
It's
I'm
of
supposed to be
Irish.
Irish.
It's of Irish origin. The name is a variant of Isling, which means dream or vision in Irish.
Gotcha. Had I known that was an Irish name, I think I probably would have gotten it, but I did not know that's what they were going for.
Yeah, no. I just kind of decided to look that one up because I'd never heard the name before.
Yeah.
Uh, the more you know, people. Tennis on the men's side, 5-2 win versus Eastern Illinois at St. Clair Tennis Club. Thursday the 15th, Fukushima, Bahun, and Vasquez all claimed singles points, while Fukushima and Vasquez won in doubles. Su won both a singles and doubles match by default as well. That sounds weird. 4-3 win at Austin P. Sunday the 18th, Austin P took the doubles point and beat SLU in both the number 1 and number 2 singles. But SLU's 3 through 6 singles took care of business with Luca Leonardo, Theo Ortiz, Valentin Vasquez, and Adam Bahun all winning. Women 7-0 win versus Eastern Illinois at St. Clair Tennis Club. Also on Thursday, Billikens won all 6 singles matches. Mintasova, Hesham, Alashina, Ferreira, Janez, and White, and 2 of the 3 doubles matches. First 3-0 start since 2015 and 16. Next up, the women host Northern Iowa on Friday the 23rd. Both teams head to Chicago State on Saturday the 24th. Pete, is women's tennis back?
I'd say they're back. Best start in 8 years. Yeah.
For whatever reason, we do decently at women's tennis. Like for a Northern Midwest random A10 school, we do okay at women's tennis.
Seems like it involves a lot of international recruiting, but
I'm not. Do I got to be the guy that says that like majors at SLU are probably favorable?
that could very well be. I don't know.
I'm not gonna like. I think like SLU has a higher rate of women than men.
Yeah, I think that's true of most colleges right now, though.
Right. Okay. Fair play. I didn't know that, but I knew SLU has historically. But I always thought they had more majors geared towards like that women were more interested in the men. But anyway, I'll shut up now. Talk myself into a grave. Yeah. That's gonna do it, Pete. I cannot wait to listen to what is currently airing on Fox 2.
Yes. Yeah, very excited. They're just getting underway on that. So maybe you should switch over now, Zach.
Yep. That's it for us. You can tell us if we know ball or not, but go Bills.
Go Bills.